Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Over 90 of the top 100 U.S. accounting firms trust Bill to handle bill pay processes. Why? Because our tools are built on over $1 trillion of secure payments. We're not just moving money. We're powering financial workflows for 500,000 customers. That's a level of expertise you just can't fake. Ready to talk with an expert? Visit Bill.com/proven to get started and grab a $250 gift card as a thank you. Terms and conditions apply. See offer page for details.
Hello and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
And I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
All right. So today we are talking about, God forbid, the sex scandal that brought down a dynasty. And we've got it all. We've got sex. We've got religion. We've got politics. We've got Trump. We've got the Fallwells. We've got it all.
It's a lot.
It all starts in March of 2012 at the Fontainebleau in Miami, where a young, I guess he was technically the pool boy. I don't know.
He was a pool attendant.
That's everyone kept calling him the pool boy. But Giancarlo, is it Granada?
Granada.
Who grew up in Miami, and his parents came here from, were they Cuba?
Cuba, yeah.
And he is working. He's 20 years old. He's working at the Fontainebleau, and a woman looks at him. This older woman catches his eyes. She catches him. They look at each other, and this is Becky Falwell, and he meets Becky, and Becky makes it very clear that she wants to, have sex with him. She wants to hook up. And she said, but the one contingency is my husband gets to watch. Dun, dun, dun. And this is how the entire thing starts. So.
Yes. And Giancarlo, I think that's how you pronounce it.
What did I say?
You said Giancarlo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I think it's Giancarlo.
Giancarlo, sorry. Giancarlo, as you're listening to this podcast, yes. I apologize.
Yeah, he's kind of naive.
Yeah, very sweet, very cute, but naive.
Yeah, he grew up in, his parents were immigrants from Cuba. They're conservative,
very religious,
Catholic, very religious.
Yes.
So the documentary is told primarily from his viewpoint. He's the one talking, giving all the details, but along with him is his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't write down her name. Do you remember her name?
Yeah, I
think it's like Liliana or something. We're just going to call her sister. She's also telling the story because she's much less naive.
Yes.
she knows what's up, and she's older.
She's older by what, 5 years?
More than that, like 7 years.
It's a significant chunk of time.
Yeah.
And so you also get the sense that she's this protective older big sister who's kind of like, what is happening? What's going on here?
Right.
What? all of that. But I thought what was really interesting is she talks about him growing up, because he was always a very sweet, cute kid, and I guess played sports, but then he got into video games and got really into video games, and it almost to the point where it became an addiction. And the family was very worried about him and worried about his development and where he was at. And so when at age 18, he started going to school, and he's got this.
He's in college. Yeah.
He's working, he's going to school. I think they were at this, the family was like, oh, good. He's kind of gotten out of this. He, I think, was a little shy and reserved in high school. And I get the sense that, he just started meeting, he graduated.
He's very attractive.
He is very attractive. And so he starts meeting girls, and this is like part of the sexual awakening of him and his young life. And they talk about the Fontainebleau, which, we all know celebrities go there. It's like a big hot spot, but apparently they have this pool where the pool is very, very happening. It's like a pool,
in Vegas.
Yeah. And I think that he was working at this club and in this pool. And so I think he got hit on a lot by women. It was sort of part of the whole process. And so he's coming out of that place. But I think that's really important to understand where he was at in his life and his mentally where he was at when he meets Becky.
So Becky is married to Jerry Falwell Jr., who's the son of the Jerry Falwell, who, if you were around in the 80s, I just remember in the 80s growing up, he's just awful.
Yeah.
He had a church in Virginia. He's a televangelist, preacher. And basically he said that gay people were evil and going to hell, and they were getting AIDS as punishment from God. He said, feminists were going to hell. Who else? I mean, anybody. Like he was a segregationist too.
Yes. Oh, yes. And the documentary gets into that.
Yeah. So he when Brown versus Board of Education came down, he had already been around for decades, obviously, since like the 50s. And so he and, other people like him started making these schools for just only white kids because these people didn't want their children going to school with black children.
So these were private schools, and they were under the guise of being religious, right?
So they had the religious church tax exemption. Mm-hmm. And the IRS came in and said, no, you cannot use your tax exempt status to have a segregated school. That's against, the Supreme Court decision. So, he was a really terrible person.
Yes. Well, and he also, what I remember way back when was there was this, back when television, there weren't so many channels. This was sort of a thing, especially on Sunday mornings, where there were all of these preachers on TV preaching. And, this is Tammy
Faye Baker, Jim Baker.
These were all of these evangelists were very popular. And I think the mainstream media and most people kind of made fun of them and laughed at them and didn't pay attention to them, but they had a tremendous amount of influence, and they were, it was all about raising money for these churches. And so he became this celebrity and became sort of the face of, good Christian values. Like, this is what we want in our country, good Christian values, which basically means, white men in power and, women at home and having babies, like this very traditional idea. Jerry Falwell wanted, everybody in their place.
Right. And so before Brown versus Board of Education, they didn't really focus on politics, these churches. Yeah. But once that happened, they realized that they needed to get some power on the inside so that they could have influence over these laws, so that they could operate however they wanted to. So they could be able to operate these segregated schools.
A lot of money and a lot of, this is what helped them.
Millions of dollars. I mean,
the amount of money people were giving to of all people. It's just like, wow.
They were collecting millions and millions of dollars. So they started getting into contributing a bunch of money to campaigns of very conservative people, getting these conservative people elected, getting in their favor so that they could get power and influence in the political world.
My favorite line of the documentary was they were talking about Dr. Falwell, doctorate not earned. So Jerry Falwell, like Bill Cosby, liked to call himself
honorary degree.
Did not do any of the work for that. God, that drives me crazy. But I just think it's so interesting, like how all of these men that we profile and that we talk about are like, oh yeah, just they all do the same damn things.
Yeah,
it's like a playbook.
It is a playbook.
So Jerry had several children, but he had a son, Jerry Falwell Jr., who very much kind of was considered the black sheep of the family, right? He was, he didn't quite fall into that line of being a preacher.
Yeah.
He didn't want to fall into those footsteps. He went to law school, and he
was a businessman.
Yeah, that's
real estate investor, developer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's also interesting, they were kind of like the Falwells were considered, what do they call it? The Southern Gatsbys. This big family with a lot of power, a lot of money, and all under the guise of, religious and how you should be living your life, quote unquote. So, poor Giancarlo, is it Giancarlo, sorry, meets Becky. Jerry, the husband, shows up, and then I can't remember, does he realize in the hotel room with the two of them who Jerry is, or is it?
I don't think he knew who they were at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to this hotel. Was it in the Fontainebleau, or did they go? No, they went to a different hotel. Too obvious.
They had to go somewhere
right.
else.
So they go to a Days Inn or something down the street.
And cheap tawdry affair.
And he says he walks into the room with Becky, and Jerry is there. I think he said he already had his pants down or something. Sorry. Yeah.
Just the image of that, Jerry so excited. My wife's at the pool right now. I can't wait.
Yeah.
He's going to show up.
So he said that there were two beds. So Jerry laid on one bed, and
but they couldn't have sex.
They couldn't have sex. Right. So Becky and Giancarlo start doing their thing. And he says that at one point he noticed that Jerry had moved from the bed and was standing in the corner masturbating. And it's so dumb to say out loud.
It's just every time you get that image in your mind, you just want to laugh at this guy, and then every time you see him on the screen, you're just
dying. Yeah, it's all you can think about. Yeah.
It's down. But was he also videotaping them at that time?
Well, I think so.
They do. That does enter into.
Giancarlo doesn't know it.
But he is.
That he finds out later because, they go on to have, years long affair. But he finds out later that they had been recording all of these sessions.
Yes.
Now, I think we need to point out, too, that Jerry Falwell Jr., while he's not a preacher, he's president of this Liberty University is it Lynchburg?
It's Lynchburg,
Virginia.
So to back up, right? So Falwell Sr. decides, I'm going to build the best Christian school in the world, and called it Liberty University. And it's in Lynchburg, Virginia. And it was founded in 1971. I don't know who was running it before Jerry, but basically Jerry, I didn't write down, when did Jerry start running the school?
I think he's been at it for a while, but, probably at least 10 to 20 years. I'm just guessing.
So that was one. He's an attorney, and he had,
real estate.
He wasn't a practicing attorney, but he went to law school, and he had these real estate deals. But another one of his jobs was Liberty University. Right. And he was thought of by the people at Liberty as helping turn it around.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things, he was the black sheep because he didn't want to really follow in Dad's footsteps, and maybe he tried to preach, but he wasn't a very good preacher. And so when he took over for Liberty University and turned it around and made it very successful, that made Dad very happy.
Yeah.
And Jerry and Becky were kind of known as like the first lady and the president of this school. And, they were very kind of loose and happening, kind of like these happening Christians.
Right. They're youngish. Yeah. And this university, it's huge. It's got, you can tell there's a ton of money into it. It's very state of the art, very nice, but, pretty much all white. It is the rules they have to follow there are outrageous. I mean, you have to live on campus, but there's obviously, you cannot have any sexual relations.
No alcohol.
Even swearing, I think you could. And
dress the way you dress. Alcohol, the swearing, and also there was like curfews,
right? And you could be fined. You were fined anytime you had one of these infractions. They would fine you, and make more money off of you. I'm sure the school is. I didn't look it up, but I'm sure it's one of these schools that's almost $100,000 a year, and it's just rich Christian young people there. But it had become in recent years kind of the symbolic place where all these conservative people would go to have a platform, and they show clips of all these speeches of these conservative people coming, and, is sort of part of the whole, because the Falwells had become entrenched in the political world. This was sort of you had to pass through these gates of Liberty University to get that Christian evangelical vote. And we'll talk more about that later because, when
that really, ties into everything. So we're back.
So back to Days Inn.
So we're back to Days Inn, and I don't think he knows who they are. They're like, "Hey, had a great time," and then Becky, I guess immediately Becky is
obsessed with him
and texting him and calling him and making points of going back to Miami, and he starts this this affair essentially with Becky, where part of it was Jerry was part of it. Jerry watched.
They start inviting him to travel with them to different places. And he kind of becomes, they have 3 adult children or young adult children, like early 20s and same age as Giancarlo. And he becomes known as kind of the 4th child. But nobody really questions why he's there. They claim they're trying to help him.
Yes.
They're mentoring him in business because Giancarlo's interested in business and Jerry's helping him. And so eventually, not too long after they start this, Jerry offers to let Giancarlo proposes like a business deal with him.
He was studying, Giancarlo was studying business in college. And he also was very interested in real estate and getting into real estate. And he was interested in what Jerry was doing. So as the affair progressed, eventually, it moved from Jerry watching them to them all sleeping together. Like they were on these 2 beds. And, he starts to describe how like he and Becky start to have sex. And so it becomes this full blown, affair. And so afterwards they're chatting and they're talking and Jerry learns like, oh, now we have a reason why this guy's hanging out with us all the time. Let's invest in a business. Together.
So he finds this, it's a youth hostel on Miami Beach. Apparently they make a lot of money because these, young kids come and just,
stay there.
They sleep there and then go out all day and all night. And so the deal was that Giancarlo was going to have a 1/2 equity interest in the property, meaning he didn't have to put any money down or anything. And he was going to manage the business and that would be, working for his equity share. And so in this strange twist, there's so many strange twists in here. So Giancarlo has a friend.
Yeah, this is the Jesus Fernandez and Jesus Fernandez Sr.
Right. So
junior and senior, two shady people.
Yeah, the junior is, they describe him as Giancarlo's best friend. But the junior, he goes by Tito. And Tito and his father, they're big time hustlers, real estate investors and real estate brokers. But they've, they're involved in all kinds of shady things and fraud and bankruptcy.
Really even real estate brokers. They have this huge rap sheet.
Yeah, the license, the real
broker's license.
The license was suspended. So they entrust these people.
Why he's so naive.
Yeah.
Carlo. It's like he entrusts this.
Yeah. Well, and Jerry doesn't even check these people out.
That's weird too. I thought that was so odd. Like he didn't vet them.
Yeah. So he says, my friend Tito is going to act as a broker for purchasing this deal and, get a big broker's fee because it was a $4.5 million property. So that's a big commission. And so they do that and they buy this business and Giancarlo's putting his time and effort into it. But the
way it was divided was weird, right? Because they didn't want to Jerry didn't want his name on it. He didn't want to be the primary owner. So it was like Becky's name was on it. So it was Becky was 50.1%. Giancarlo was 24.9.
Yeah.
And then the other 25.
And then it was their son, Trey, Jerry Falwell III. They put like the other 24%. Yeah. They made like an LLC or something. And then, and they divided the interest. But the bottom line was on paper, Giancarlo only had a 24.9
less than
25% interest. And so the Falwell family had the rest.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a lot of leverage. But the whole point of doing this for them, this had nothing to do with business.
Yeah.
This was to get their grips on him. You know what I mean? Like get their hooks into him so that he had a reason to stay in this relationship.
Yeah, because one of the big things that happened was pretty early on in the relationship was that Giancarlo, he found a girlfriend. And so he felt really guilty. He's like, I want to be faithful to my girlfriend. And Becky was like, no.
Yeah.
Like Becky was smitten. Very, very smitten.
She told him she loved him after, 3 days or something.
Well, and it sort of created this weird dynamic between the three of them where, Becky was smitten by Giancarlo. Giancarlo. And if Giancarlo in any way, shape or form kind of like set boundaries with her, pushed her off or said no, or like, I have a girlfriend, I want to be faithful to her. Jerry would call. So Becky goes to Jerry. Jerry would call and Jerry would be like, hey, man, come on, blah, 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 blah. And we've got this business together and, make Becky happy. It was this weird, and one of the things that I thought was very odd as they talked about this is that Jerry was 18 when he met Becky at 13.
Yeah.
And it's really,
and
really
she was obsessed with him. Yes. Like he was dating her sister, her older sister.
So the whole thing was,
and she
weird.
She went after him. Yeah, she's a real, like, she doesn't take no for an answer.
Yeah, no, she does not. So and then she talked about how she dropped out of school to support him. I think that, Becky saw her sights at 13. She saw Jerry and was like, I want to be part of this family and I want this power, whatever this is. And so this was this weird triangle. And then he mentions this is when he realized they had been recording him for a long way. Like it sounds like in the story, this is about the time where he starts to realize and piece together like, oh, this is more than I thought it was.
Well, I think when that realization came was when, and I don't know if we're skipping over a bunch of stuff.
Right. So the problem, you know what it is? Because I take my notes based on what's happening in the show, right? Like, but the documentary is skipping all over the place too, so it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, it's a lot of information and it kind of skips around, but I guess we can skip around too. But I think he finds out that they had been recording him when this guy Tito Fernandez and his father come back into the picture, and they basically file a lawsuit against Jerry
Okay, yeah. This was a part I was very confused about, this part of it.
Okay. So they file a lawsuit against Jerry and Giancarlo, claiming that they weren't just getting a real estate commission. They were supposed to be getting an interest in this property, the Miami Beach property. Now, it was a totally bogus lawsuit, but they did it as a way to shake them down. So after the lawsuit is filed, their attorney calls
Giancarlo, who was also a real scumbag.
Yeah, he calls Giancarlo and basically tells him that they have pictures, I think.
Yeah, so that was my question, was where did they get these pictures? Where did the Fernandezes find these pictures of them?
Well, Giancarlo swears that he did not share. So these are pictures that Becky had sent to him, I believe.
To
Giancarlo.
Okay.
And so he must have known then that she had pictures. Mm-hmm. And then he swears he did not share the pictures with anybody. But maybe someone hacked his phone or his computer.
Giancarlo go to the bathroom and then they opened up his phone and like started taking. I'm like, I also wonder if they were like, what's this? Like they kind of got wind that this was a weird relationship.
Yeah.
And then they start kind of poking around, following them. And then they figured out like, maybe we don't have any evidence, but we're going to pretend like we have evidence. So we're going to shake them down.
Well,
kind of thing. I
think there was real evidence because it came back. This evidence comes back later when Michael Cohen gets involved.
Yeah.
But basically, Giancarlo realizes that this is a shakedown. And so he tells Jerry, you got to do something about this, get rid of it. He's like, oh, don't worry. So basically, Falwell's lawyers tell them, okay, we'll just pay you whatever you want. Mm-hmm. They just cave. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, no, that's not good enough. Because if you're willing to just pay us, we've got you, then they wanted like millions of dollars. So, they're panicking and okay, so this is where I guess we have to now bring like Trump into this picture.
So just in terms of the timeline, right? So everybody meets each other in 2012. It's October of 2014 that Fernandez and his father come back asking about the money. So in those 2 years, the affair is still happening and Giancarlo is really getting, he's seeing the writing on the wall. He knows he's a bit trapped. Right. Because he knows I can't end this affair because I'm so tied up in this real estate deal. And the sister says he was putting all his time and energy into working at this hostel, which I can understand that position of like, I've invested so much time and energy in this thing. I've got to make this work. And he just felt like they just guilted him constantly. Like, you owe us, you owe us, you owe us, you owe us.
Yeah.
So here it is. So that all happens at the end of 2014. And then 2015 comes around and all of a sudden we see, I just wrote down
Trump enters the scene.
God, Trump.
So this is before he announced that he was running for president.
But there had been rumblings.
Rumblings, exactly. Yeah. So as part of that process, he has to go to Liberty University and, make an appearance and make a big speech. And I love it. He's in his speech, he talks about how the Bible is his favorite book. Or maybe his second favorite book next to his book, Art of the Deal.
Yes.
So Jerry knows that, Giancarlo, God bless him, is a Trump fan and thinks Trump is a wonderful businessman.
Yes, thought he was a wonderful businessman and read his
book. Yes.
Really interested in Trump. And really quick, before we back up, because the documentary also talks about how the relationship with Falwell Sr. and Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Because back in 1980, 1980, which was when Reagan got elected, he ran against Jimmy Carter. And what was so interesting about this is if you look at Jimmy Carter and you look at Reagan, and you would think, who's the Christian?
Yeah, Jimmy Carter's an actual Christian.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter is an actual Baptist, married the same woman, tried and true, preacher and all of that. And then here's Reagan, a former actor who's been divorced and now remarried. And, I'm sure he's had affairs and other scandals. So, here are these two people, and Falwell picks Reagan because why pick Reagan over Carter?
Well, because he knew to advance his agenda, Reagan would do that.
Yeah.
Because so around this time, Falwell Sr., they're trying to, and all these Christian, evangelical Christian people, they're trying to figure out, like, what is the key issue that we can get people really like riled up about? And they had tried, the segregation issue. People were just kind of like, they tried going after like pornography. That's the problem. And they were like, don't really care. They tried,
I want my porn.
Yeah. The hating feminists, that didn't really go over well. But then, and this was like 4 or 5 years after Roe versus Wade. And, they'd never talked about abortion before. But all of a sudden they realized that abortion was an issue that people were extremely polarized about, cared a lot about, and would get them to the ballot box.
Yes.
And they still are doing it today, because that is the one issue that the people who otherwise wouldn't vote or don't care, for whatever reason, that's just this issue to get people to show up.
Yeah.
So Reagan was anti-choice, and they knew that he was going to appoint justices to, does this sound familiar?
Yes.
Appointing justices to the Supreme Court who are, going to be not favorable towards abortion. And that was their in.
Mm-hmm. And then they what drives me crazy is these people are such hypocrites. They explain away all of these moral things around, Falwell and is preaching marriage and sanctity of family and marriage, but you have someone in your congregation who's thinking about divorce, you would talk them out of it. But then here you have Reagan, who's been divorced. I'm not saying divorce is a bad thing by any means. I'm just saying that they were such hypocrites.
They totally
do as I say, not as I do.
And with the Trump stuff,
that was a whole other thing. Let's flash forward now back to 2015.
Okay, back to 2015. So Trump comes to Liberty University. Jerry invites Giancarlo to come, and Trump signs his book. And Michael Cohen is there. Yes. Now, Michael Cohen, who it was for, 20 plus years, Trump's fixer, truly was a fixer, and a good one too. He honed in right away on this Giancarlo guy, because his job was to always be looking around and see like who are the people around? Who can I exploit? Whatever. He focused in on, why is this Giancarlo guy here? There's something about this. There's something off. Why is Jerry Falwell, helping this? Yeah. Like what is it about this guy? So he knew. So when this shakedown lawsuit was going on and they weren't going to settle, and it was clear that they were going for millions of dollars, Jerry calls Trump and also I don't know if he necessarily called, he might have gone directly to Michael Cohen and said, I need help, And Michael Cohen came in. I don't know what he did. He did his thing. He got the Fernandezes to, drop the lawsuit. I don't know what they paid them or what they gave them. But part of the deal was they had to turn over whatever pictures, videos, whatever they had to Michael Cohen. Mm-hmm. So now Michael Cohen is in possession of this stuff, which he later uses against Jerry Jr.
Yes.
So where are we now?
We're at the 2015, 2016. So now it looks like it's coming, it's happening. Trump is going to run.
Right.
And what base does he need to get? He needs to get this religious base. And that's the thing. The Falwells have a tremendous amount of power in this base. And all the other, conservative presidential, people have to come and kiss the ring of them. So, and Jerry Jr. is a different kind of guy, right? And so he's kind of like, hey, let's bring in Trump. And and it looked like Trump had leverage over Jerry and said to Jerry, okay, hey, now you need to help me. You need to get me elected.
Yeah, Michael Cohen busted out the pictures or whatever he had. And because Trump was teasing this, I have a big announcement, got this big endorsement coming. And so they were working on Falwell and, they used that evidence. And so then Falwell endorses Trump and kind of changes the course of history.
Yes, which is frightening to think
about.
Yeah. They
because who knows what would have happened? I mean, if they didn't have that, because the group of these evangelicals, they'll just do whatever these leaders tell them to do. And if Falwell had told them, vote for Jeb Bush, they would have voted for Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
But he endorsed Donald Trump, and that was a big deal because there are a lot of them, and they vote, and they vote because of the abortion issue.
Yes.
So,
and of course, Trump comes in, and again, you look at Trump, who has how many kids does he have? Between 4 or 5 women. I mean, Trump has been married 4 times.
5 children,
known for the affairs. Even when the whole grab her by the pussy thing came out, they had Jerry Falwell Jr. on these TV shows, and he's like, just brushing that under the table and excusing the behavior. And so here's this thing that it's so hypocritical and contradictory, where you have you run a university where you're not allowed to swear. You're not allowed to do anything. And now you're turning around and endorsing someone who goes against all of the values that you're trying to instill in your students.
Yeah.
That's the part that just drives me.
Well, and they've always just had this, the ends justifies the means mentality, and they're just savage.
Yeah.
And they don't care. They're like, well, if we have to we'll just hold our nose and put up with this because it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
And there's just this understanding.
But the reality is that Jerry and Trump aren't that far apart in terms of personalities. I mean, this was the whole thing, right? And this is what Giancarlo talks about when he went to Liberty University for the first time. Because, he was kind of isolated in some ways. They would go see him in Miami, So when he went to Liberty University, he's looking around going, okay, it's lily white. There's no drinking, no this and that. And then he's got Jerry with the drink in his hand in the corner.
Right.
Like Jerry drinks, they're having extramarital affairs. They're doing all this stuff, right? Like he's seeing the
total hypocrisy.
So that's the thing, Jerry. I don't think Jerry's holding his nose with Trump. I think it's just more of, do as I say, not as I do. Right.
Yeah. And he talks about going to that. Somewhere in here in this time period, he gets accepted to graduate school at Georgetown, and he's in DC.
Yes, that's right. And Trump's already elected.
Yeah. And then his mom and his sister are there visiting, and Falwell says, oh, they're there for some Christian conference, or all these pastors are coming to lay hands on Trump. Remember that picture?
It's crazy.
Yeah. There's that picture of everyone touching Trump and praying. Oh gosh. So anyway, they're having this whole Christian conference, and then at night they're all partying, and they're totally different people than they were earlier.
We talked about one woman who's like speaking in tongues on the stage.
That's Trump's spiritual advisor.
The spiritual advisor who's speaking in tongues on the stage. And then he meets her at a party later, and she's like, hey, what's up? How's it going? What's happening? And this is the stuff that drives me crazy, is these people that come in, and I'm a spiritual advisor and I'm this and I'm that, with like zero credentials, zero anything. You're just a charlatan. You're just, and you make everybody else who works in that realm look really bad, because you make us look like we are charlatans. We're not. So that's Trump. I had a hard time. I barely took notes, because every time I see Trump on my screen, I just get so infuriated. And like, Max can watch Trump like talk about running again and all that. I cannot listen to someone who lies over and over and over again. If you're a Trump lover, this may not be the podcast for you.
No.
Because I have a hard time with him.
No.
So now, the real estate thing is he's now in Washington, D.C., but he's really pulling away from
He's trying to, but if he doesn't call Becky, she's constantly texting him. And if he doesn't respond, she'll start calling him incessantly. And then if he doesn't respond, then Jerry will call him.
Yeah.
They're still doing this. And he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to break up with her, break up with them. And so they're already trying to jack him with his interest in this property.
Yeah. So they're already trying. So that was the other part I was a little confused about. So what exactly happened with the property?
Well, so he said that, I think this was before the endorsement, that, Falwell had to clean up some loose ends and get his name off some stuff because this was going to draw attention to him. Well, that's the excuse he used. But anyway, he said, I'll buy your equity interest for $600,000, but basically I can't give you the money yet because he doesn't want it to look suspicious, doesn't want to do it too close in time to this announcement. And he's like, okay. And then he says, in the meantime, he said he was going to give him, I don't know if it was an equity interest or what he called it, but there was a La Quinta hotel in Virginia. And he was going to let him manage that, and it would give him have some interest in it. It was going to make him $50,000 a year or something. It was fine. He was stringing him along. Yeah. He never got any of this money. In the end, he never got any of it. It was all just to string him along and keep it going. And in the meantime, Jerry's kind of falling apart because apparently he has a drinking problem.
Yeah, so Jerry has a really bad drinking problem. I'm pretty sure the two of them do drugs too. I mean, I'm assuming there's a lot of coke involved. This is just my assumption.
Yeah.
But he obviously has a drinking problem. And then I can't remember what year this was, where a very famous photo comes up about Jerry, where Jerry did this happen before or after Giancarlo comes out? I think that it comes around the same time.
I think it's about the same time, maybe slightly before.
What is this? Because Giancarlo starts to, he's like trying to, he feels trapped. He's getting journalists calling him, sniffing around the story. Jerry's telling him, don't call back. Don't do this. Don't do that. So he's in this weird position where he wants this money. He's not getting the money. And he's at this place where he decides that he's going to get even, and very famously, there's a very famous 2020, Trump speech.
Well, that was the speech at Liberty University.
Was that the speech?
Yeah.
Okay. Where he said, don't be the nice guy, get even. And so this is when Giancarlo says, okay, I'm going to get even,
Yeah. And so, that picture.
So I think that happened around the same time.
It was around the same time. It was a picture of, there was some woman, he's standing with this redheaded woman, not his wife, and she looks like she's pregnant and she can't zip her shorts up all the way. So she has them kind of unzipped. And so he tries to copy that and he unzips his pants and you can sort of see
his underwear,
the top of his underwear and
and he's got a glass of alcohol.
Yeah.
He's drinking.
Not a good picture.
But
not a good picture.
But he goes on TV. He
tries to explain it.
Tries to explain it away. And even if that's what's happening, he's like, and then, he's slurring his words the entire time. So it's very obvious. This is where things are happening. It's hard to describe all of this because there's the Giancarlo, all this stuff's happening for him. And then all these political things are happening in the back. And it's a little bit of it's almost like dominoes that are just falling. They get set up and then they're dominoes that are falling.
It's hard to keep track of, but I think it was that after that picture and his terrible explanation of it, I think that's when the Liberty University Board of Directors, they suspended him. Mm-hmm. And then they eventually, I can't remember if there was something else that
they fired. Well, they suspended him. And then with this idea, apparently they suspended him with the idea that he would eventually, once all the dust settles, we'll bring you back. And then when I believe when the Giancarlo stuff came out, that's when they really fired him and then sued him for money because he got a very generous severance package.
Before Giancarlo came out.
He got the severance package, which was really nice. And now they're suing him saying, wait a second, you lied.
You misrepresented. Yeah.
So we want that money back. And then Giancarlo does this. It's with Reuters. Right?
Well, prior to this, before he decides he's going to get even, he is suicidal.
Yes.
And he's seriously suicidal. And he even sent a text to Becky saying, when they find my body hanging from a tree in the woods, make sure that my dog gets back to my family. And of course, what did she do about that? Did she do anything with that? I mean, what if he had gone through with it? I mean, she didn't even try to help him or reach out to him.
And it's so interesting too, because when he talked about feeling suicidal, I just thought of Monica Lewinsky, right? And here we are,
everything is coming in on you. You don't see any way out.
And again, he's 20 when he meets Becky. How old is Monica when she meets Bill?
21, I think. Yeah. 22. Oh, and also he had been trying to get an internship and well, now that's because at this point news stories had already come out about him. Not from he later tells his story to that one Reuters reporter.
Yes,
but other reporters and stories have come out with rumblings about this. So his name is now, if you Google his name, these articles come up about the affair with the pool boy. So he's trying to get an internship and he's not getting anything. And he finally gets one, but then they must have in the interim.
No, he makes the mistake of telling either Becky or Jerry.
Okay, yeah.
On an internship at this place.
Right.
And then a week later,
they rescind
it because they don't, they're freaking out about him talking or talking to anyone. And they're also showing him this is how powerful.
Right. Well,
so this is the stage where he's feeling suicidal, where he's like, I feel like my career is over. I've just invested all this time. I've done this thing. And
so then he comes out of it and decides that he's going to get even. And so there's a reporter from Reuters who had been trying to contact him for a while and was working on the story, a real reporter.
Yes.
Like a actual journalist.
Not Nancy Grace.
And so he sends him a text and says, hey, I would like to talk to you. And so he talks to him and cooperates with this story. And literally, I don't know if it was the day before or the day of, again, the Falwells get wind that this story is coming out. And so the Washington Examiner, I don't even know if that's a legitimate newspaper, if it's some conservative paper.
Yes. I had never heard of that paper before. I'm like, what is the Washington?
Yeah, it's probably some conservative paper. They basically publish in advance to try to discredit this. They publish a story basically saying it's all a lie.
Like they make it out to be a fatal attraction thing. Like he is in love with Becky and he's trying to destroy our lives. And is this probably is the worst of all the things Jerry has done. And he's done a lot of shitty things. He throws his wife under the bus.
Totally.
Basically says, Becky had an affair with this kid, this pool boy. I'm this innocent victim. I'm not in the corner at all. I'm in the corner. And throws her under the bus.
I know.
It's unreal. What kind of person are you? If you love and care about this woman and you're just going to throw her on, like literally fed her to the wolves and was just like, so they were making him out to be like innocent Becky had an innocent affair with him and now he's trying to blackmail them.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
awful.
It was really awful. But
so the article comes out and, it's still, of course, just being tried by the media. He's still in a really, Giancarlo's still in a really tough spot. He's still feeling terrible. He's still not sure about, is this going to be my life? What's going to happen now? All of it.
Yeah. And now I can't remember, I know that at the end of the documentary, Jerry's life is just, they totally fired him, but then, sued him for not disclosing all this stuff. And
right. But he and Becky are still together, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Where did it leave off? It's been like a week or so since I watched this. I can't remember how they left off.
It was because it was very strange. I mean, you're right. Like it is, you kind of see, it just kind of ends.
Yeah.
This was one of those shows that maybe 2 episodes would have been good. Like there were so many things. There were so many, points, and they were trying to get across in a story to tell that it comes at you fast and furious.
Yeah, it was really a lot to digest. And again, I watched it twice and still, struggle to succinctly describe everything. But yeah, so I don't really know. I mean, Giancarlo, he's like, I had to come clean, get my story out there. Yeah. And I think in general, at least I felt this way, I think people will be sympathetic to him.
Yeah.
And I think that he'll go on and, be okay. Because even though he was naive, he didn't seem like a smart person. He was just incredibly naive.
Yes. Well, again,
and
we're
trusting.
Back to this whole thing of, being under 25 and being young and not really knowing what you're getting into. And, here you are, you're 20 years old, you're having this affair with this older woman in this kind of odd situation. And they come to you and they say, I'm going to present you with this amazing opportunity. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity for someone to come around and say, you don't have to come up with any money.
Right.
We're going to put an equity stake in, we're going to finance the whole thing. We're going to make your dreams come true. And that's intoxicating. And that's intoxicating for anybody. But imagine being 20, 21 years old and you're at the beginning of your career. That's incredibly intoxicating. What that can do. And you can see that he was influenced a lot. This his friend Jesus Fernandez, who's a total scam artist, right? Is, you're trusting him with this huge business deal.
Right.
And you don't at all notice or, get at all like how, sleazy these people are. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just the whole thing. I think he was really kind of new to a lot of it. And that's the other part of it too, is talking about Miami and what Miami is like. And that Miami, there's a real underbelly with Miami. And what I read some quote in an article that it's like, you go to LA to become someone, you go to New York to, you go to LA to become someone, you go to New York to, right, like take your riches and show off. I'm not saying that right, but you go to Miami to disappear.
Oh,
right. You go to Miami to become someone else, essentially. And so I think there was I think he was probably very isolated from this whole Miami world. And so there was that part too. And you want to believe it, each year you just want to believe that I'll get this check, I'll get this money. Anybody who watched the Anna Delvey,
never saw that.
It was good. The Shonda Rhimes one, is you just want to believe that Anna Delvey's going to wire you the money, right?
Right,
so just wants to believe.
Yeah, he just, if I hold on a little bit longer, then I can get out of this. But, I just remembered now, like how they ended this.
Yeah, because it's like a whole, why we brought up the Reagan stuff.
Yeah.
Falwell.
So, and the first thing was that basically Jerry Falwell kind of fulfilled the circle. He closed the circle of what his father started with getting Trump elected. Look what Trump did to the Supreme Court and to all the courts that he appointed, federal courts that he appointed justices. And abortion is now no longer, constitutional right. He literally fulfilled the destiny of his father.
In the corner. At the Days Inn, Jerry Falwell Jr.
brought it home.
Brought it home. So, and that's the part about these kinds of stories and politics and all of this, of how crazy it is. Like how crazy, because this couple finds this kid and they, because of their sexual proclivities,
change the course of history. I know.
It's Christ, it's unreal. But I also think there's this with them and the Falwells, this idea of being untouchable. And it's kind of how I feel about Trump's, a lot of times, where it's just like, is anything going to bring this guy down?
Yeah.
Is he ever going to have to pay for his crimes? And it just feels like these guys, they're just able to get away with so much crapola. It just pisses me off to no end. I know life isn't fair, but this just feels like I just get so angry.
Well, and I actually feel like in some small way these documentaries are helping us to make progress and kind of putting it out in front of people's faces and explaining it. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, younger people, who look at this will go, huh. I hope it makes an impression. I mean, we lived through a lot of this stuff, but, people really need to know. But the other thing is that throughout the documentary, they kept flashing to this young man who he was an alumni of Liberty University, and he had founded some kind of a group to try to, I don't know, bring change, reform, awareness, whatever, to the oppressive practices at Liberty University. And so, he talked a lot about the different rules and what would happen. And so as a result of Giancarlo coming forward, it really gave a lot of Liberty University students, past and present, the courage to come forward and talk about, it was mostly women who had been raped.
Yeah. So at Liberty University, if you're a woman and you go to a party and you drink an alcoholic beverage and someone's drugged you and then raped you, if you go and report it, then you're in trouble for drinking. Basically,
right.
That's kind of how it worked. It was just like
you were fined.
You were fined and you were in trouble.
It was your fault.
It was your fault, but because you drank alcohol and that alcohol was, had something in it. And even if they didn't drink alcohol, they ingested some drug that was given to them, and now you're in trouble for that.
Or they were in trouble for. I mean, I think you could get in trouble just even for, partying, or even with or without drugs. Yeah. And then the perpetrators, they basically would fine them $500 for, I forget how they worded it. It was like in their little handbook that, they made it sound like they had committed some sort of minor infraction.
Yeah, like like you had gotten a hot plate or microwave for your dorm room, which was like
prohibited. Yeah.
In college, the big thing was you weren't supposed to have like a microwave or any kind of electrical thing. Like it's like that. It's like, oh, you had a hot plate.
Exactly. And so they never did anything about it. And I don't know how anyone could send their child to that university. I don't know if this is going to have any effect on that university.
What's the university doing now?
No idea. I don't know.
I mean, and that's the other thing that I think is so interesting when I see some of these documentaries. It's about a world that is so far from our world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The religious stuff and just, we've been talking a lot. We've been watching Sister Wives. And so it's just so fascinating to see these homes where religion and, Christian values and how you should be and how you should act is just.
Yeah, it dictates everything.
It dictates everything. And I can imagine if you're a young Christian going to, this university is probably just very looked upon as, or maybe some parents are saying you can only go to Liberty.
Oh, yeah, I think that is. I think a lot of these parents, again, it's all part of this thing that they're brainwashed to be like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they know that at regular colleges, all that stuff is happening. Yeah. So you're only going to this college. And friends who I've had over the years who were raised in very strict religious homes. I mean, the level of shame that they have,
everything
they feel, and, most of them, pretty much all of them, are recovering from that. Otherwise, I wouldn't, probably wouldn't have a lot in common with them. But yeah, they're basically recovering from whatever religion they were raised with. And and just the shame, since they lived their lives sincerely thinking if they did this, they were going to go to hell.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, and that's a concept. This is a concept that's so hard for our parents were hippies.
Yeah. Well, mom, who's listening, is going to say she wasn't a hippie, but keep going.
Well, they were both hippies for short
photos. They look like hippies.
Yeah, for a short amount of time, they lived the more hippie lifestyle, but not really. You know what I mean? Like underneath it all, they were.
I mean, our father's an attorney. You know,
our mother was an educator. They were, but they have a hippie mindset.
Yes, they do.
Let's just put it that way.
Very, very liberal.
Yes, and very, went out of their way and still do to just try, to preach, the social justice and all that kind of stuff. And so they have that mentality always, even if they didn't, Well,
what's been interesting, and it's pretty much our entire family, both sides. I mean, everybody in our family, both sides went to college and, right? Everybody's very liberal, very democratic, very all of these things. So yeah, these sometimes it just feels like a totally different world that you're exposed to. And that's why I was wondering, because I'm not here to shame Becky and Jerry for their sexual activity. Like, listen, if you two are married and
it's fine with you
and everybody's consenting adults and everyone's okay with it, like none of that is to be ashamed of. But it is really interesting where it's a little bit of like, if you two have this thing between the two of you and you want to practice it, like, why not get a prostitute?
Right.
Get someone, sex worker. I apologize. Why not get a sex worker? Why not hire someone who's also a consenting adult who's entering into this understanding this, like, why enter into a relationship with him and string him along?
Because Becky wanted a boyfriend. She acted like a 12-year-old girl, or 15-year-old girl.
Also was at the end of the documentary that we haven't talked about is when the story came out, all of a sudden more stories started coming out about other kids, other young men that said Becky was pursuing me. So Becky's a predator. Right?
Yes.
And that's the thing.
And this was all grooming behavior.
Yes.
All the stuff they did, that's what makes this wrong. It's not this that they like to have sex in this way. What was wrong about it was that they groomed this kid and gained his trust, manipulated him, basically bribed him, and then trapped him.
Yes.
And ruined his life.
And so it comes out that she had been doing this with lots of men, that this was a pattern for her, that this was something that she did. And so that's the part that I do wonder if if Jerry Falwell had been raised differently and he meets his wife and they decide to get together and this is what they want to do, like, how do I say this? It's just interesting that this is part of their pattern. This is part of the entire process. It's not just about the sex or the kind of sex that they like to have. It's like wrapping this person in and making him part of this tight thing. And now we've got control of him. And I think that is a big part of this entire process. I think it's not just the sex.
No.
It's part of this game that they play. And that's why, it is really hard to watch and to see that he had no chance. He had no shot
against them. No, and that's why they picked him. That's why it worked.
Yes.
If he had been more savvy, he would have just looked at them like, what? No, like this was a one night stand. I'm out of here.
Bye, Becky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm surprised more stories haven't come out about other men that they've done with this. And I also wonder are there young women?
Yeah.
Did they bring young women?
Oh, well, that was, remember this, they touched on this briefly. Remember there was that picture of a Liberty University student in Jerry's house and
it was the pants down.
No. This was a young girl, like a blonde girl who was maybe 19. She was a Liberty University student. And there's a picture of her and she's kind of flashing her backside. And she's in, you could tell from the background, she's in one of his houses or something. he was doing this shit with students there.
There were times where Becky and Giancarlo, they just had sex together without Jerry.
Oh, and he said, yeah, as long as you record it, I'm fine.
Yes, that's right. So as long as you record it. So obviously the two of them both had separate had affairs and situations and all that. So what I'm wondering is, with these young women, is Jerry recording them secretly and watching it back? Because again, what's so fascinating about all of this is that, the whole Christian world is against pornography and these kinds of behaviors. And here's Jerry, essentially like a home pornographer.
Yeah, it's all a farce.
Yeah,
it's just a way to get people in and make them feel like, oh, we're part of something. We're good people. We're doing something, and we'll go to heaven if we do this. And
yes. So come and do this, or pay me, give me money. I'm a spiritual person and I'm special. So pay me and I'll pray for you. And if I pray for you, then you're definitely going to heaven because I'm so special.
Yeah.
I'm Jerry Falwell. This is how you got, this is Jerry's whole line is how he got people who had no money at all to give them any money that they had, was this guarantee, I can get you to heaven.
Yeah.
I can change your life. I can do this for you. It's just, you're just,
well, yeah, and that's the thing. I want to say that I don't want to make it sound like we're dissing religion or people who are conservative or anything like that. There's a difference between that and what these people are doing. And this type of fraud and manipulation, whatever, happens anywhere. I don't care where you are. This just happens to be the venue that we're talking about in this documentary.
The Monica Lewinsky story. Hello, Democrats, Republicans.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. It happens everywhere. But the use of religion tends to happen. That's one. It's very powerful.
Yes, and it's a control tactic.
It happens a lot in that venue. So I don't want to make it sound like we think that all people who practice religion are, gonna fall for something like this, or this is a very specific situation, a perfect storm.
Yes, it was
sorts. So
yeah, a bit of a perfect storm. Yeah. But it seems like it's interesting. If it wasn't Giancarlo, there would have been someone else, and Michael Cohen would have figured that out. Do you know what I mean? There's, some of these things like this would have gotten here in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, and so here we are, full circle, and
I don't know what's going to happen. Now who's going to be the gatekeeper? Who's going to be the Christian evangelical gatekeeper now? Because it can't be Jerry Falwell Jr.
No, it can't.
Oh, well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that.
Oh,
he could make a comeback. He could go on a redemption tour. He could go to rehab, whatever.
Stranger things have happened, so it could happen.
Yeah. Hey. Trump was elected president. So I like this documentary. I thought it was really good. I did too.
I enjoyed it. I did not like the people or the subject or anything that happened in it.
No, I don't like the outcome of it.
But I did enjoy it. All right. So I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
Brooke, you want to wrap it up?
Well, thank you for listening. If you made it this far and listened to all of our kvetching, I sincerely thank you. And
what?
Yeah, we had our few little senior moments.
We're in a fugue state.
But anyway, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast. We would really appreciate it. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a 5-star review. And we will see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Stephen here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Stephen will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellows wherever you get your podcasts.
When it comes to managing money, forget the hype and look at the results. Bill has $1 trillion of secure payments powering our bill pay tools. Instead of just moving money, Bill is powering the financial operations of nearly 500,000 customers. So stop the guesswork and start scaling with the proven choice. Ready to talk with an expert? Visit Bill.com/proven to get started and grab a $250 gift card as a thank you. Terms and conditions apply. See offer page for details.